I am so thankful for you being here tonight for the Exceptional Conservative Show live for the nation's capital. I'm your host, Ken McClinton. We are talking with Suzzanne Monk tonight about reopening DC, but I have to interrupt this with some breaking news. We just found out that Kevin James, you know him as the actor from several very good movies, as well as the TV show King of Queens, was involved in an altercation with police this afternoon. We want to present the film for you so that you would know what the truth is from the very beginning.
I can't do it anymore, Marcus. I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna die. I'm too young to die.
This is our life now. This is our life now, okay? We're gonna go on. It's gonna be fun.
I can't go on, Marcus. I can't do this. I'm gonna die.
Why are you shaking my hand?
I gotta run. I can't go to jail. I can't go to jail, Marcus. I can't.
Calm down.
Oh God, they're coming. They're coming.
Shut up. Shut up.
Oh no!
Hey, there we go. There we go. With your hand on your head, with flat on the ground, not the fifth foot.
Oh hey, Ted. Oh hey, Marcus. How are you?
Good. We out for a little run?
Hey, yeah, just did 7. I might do another 7. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to hold you up. Hey, let's grab dinner sometime.
I would love that.
All right.
You, me,
Good
Karen.
seeing you. Absolutely. I mean.
What's your emergency?
Hi, yeah. I got a couple handshakers right in front of me.
Okay, sir, are they still in the vicinity?
Yeah, I'm staring at them right now.
Run.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it has gotten that bad in America where you actually have to run because you got caught in a handshake. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a tremendous honor to talk with Suzzanne Monk tonight about the work that she's doing in terms of reopening America. She is the founder of Reopen America PAC, and she will be in D.C. tomorrow at Freedom Plaza at 12 noon for Reopen D.C. Suzzanne, that is a bit of levity, but the truth of the matter is that many Americans right now feel this afraid that that their state has absolute rule over them and they are isolated from all of society. I wanted to get your thoughts regarding how well the state has done to put fear into the good people of America.
Oh wow, fear seems to be their forte, seems to be the thing that they're best at, with their partner, the media, who has done nothing but continue to frighten people and scare people and continue to alter the message depending on whether or not any specific demographic is afraid enough. As you might know, the recent trend in worrying the Black community, that COVID-19 affects the Black community more, came after the parties in Chicago, where people on the South Side were not listening to Mayor Lori Lightfoot. The gatherings, the partying in the streets in Baltimore, were not listening to Larry Hogan over there in Maryland. So, you know, they move the message and they move the fear based on who they need to keep under their thumb. And it's really unfortunate, particularly here in Washington, D.C., because as often happens, Muriel Bowser does not give Heine about what happens to the working class folks, and certainly not the working class folks here in the 8th Ward where I live. And yes, we see the policies that she is putting upon us are actually disproportionately affecting my neighbors, which are the working class Black community here in Washington, D.C. And she doesn't want to hear that message because that goes against her narrative, and it certainly doesn't propagate the fear that she needs to allow for us to allow her to continue to enforce these unconstitutional rules.
Now, you live in Ward 8, I live in Ward 7. This is considered the area east of the river. And I just want to broach this question with you. there have been black mayors for as long as there has been a home rule in District of Columbia, always with the identity of solving poverty and health conditions. And yet, somehow, these same political leaders have used the fear that it is COVID-19 that is the health conditions or problems in east of the river. It couldn't have been the fact that they've been in office for over 60 years and haven't solved the poverty crisis and haven't solved the high health crisis. Am I correct about that?
No. You're absolutely correct about that. And on top of that, Muriel's shutdown policies are actually negatively affecting private organizations that do serve that community. So a recent article I read today, the newspaper Street Sense, which is a newspaper that homeless people sell frequently on the street. We have had a similar program in Chicago called Streetwise. It's an excellent program that has helped hundreds, even thousands of individuals to earn their way out of poverty. They will no longer be printing their newspaper because of the coronavirus shutdowns. So that is a loss to some of the most in need community that they no longer have access to. I talked with a lovely young woman in front of our Safeway up here on Alabama just 2 days ago. She worked at a halfway house that took care of people who are coming out of prison and are trying to reform their life and get back some kind of citizen life that they can participate in our society with. They have been shut down because of the shutdown. So her concern are those individuals are going to get out there, going to reoffend and go right back into the system, which is the whole purpose they formed this organization. So not only do we have layers of Democrat policies from time immemorial that are affecting the community, but the shutdowns specifically are now undermining those individuals who have provided the services, the churches, the private organizations that are no longer able to help because Muriel says it's not okay.
Now, Susan, there are those that would say that I am ostensibly hyperbolic, that I'm just blowing things out of the water, that I don't understand why Muriel Bowser chose the chime matrix rather than the other matrix, the Heim matrix that was used by Dr. Fauci, where he came out originally and said that 2.5 million Americans were going to die. We're all going to die. And she used a metric that said 4 times that amount were going to die, and that DC would be the biggest hotspot on the face of the planet. I got to ask you here, was she wrong, or right?
She was wrong, and wrong. And in fact, those predictions are what they based that beautiful flattening the curve chart that they all showed us, but somehow it never had the numbers on the side. So we could not actually measure what they were talking about. But when you take their predictions, we're talking about Fauci's predictions being 10 times more than his current predictions, and even more than that, than what the actual death rate we're seeing now. We're well below the curve. The whole point was to prevent overwhelming the hospitals. Our DC hospitals are right now at 70% capacity. We have at least 147 ventilators we're not using in the city right now. So we are nowhere close to overwhelming our hospitals, but we have dialysis patients that aren't getting their treatment. We have diabetes patients that are not getting their treatment. If you don't have COVID, you can't get medical treatment here, Virginia, Maryland, in the DMV. So this is a health risk going forward. I get really tired of people telling me that I'm putting lives at risk when it is the shutdowns that are putting lives at risk, and not just our lives, Kenneth. I got to be honest. The UN put out numbers recently saying that 30 million children are going to be in starvation conditions, will probably starve worldwide in 2020 because of the global shutdowns. 175 million people are going to, up to 500 million people, the numbers are stunning, will be dropped back into that lowest bracket, people living under $2 a day, which we have done so much progress in bringing people up out of poverty because of, obviously, markets, free markets, capitalist principles that we in the United States support so much, and are being now crushed because of our food shortages. Here, our food supply problems, we're going to see starvation in the third world. So and now we're already seeing suicide rates start to meet the death rates of the virus. In Tennessee, suicide rates just surpassed rates of death for the virus. So we're going to see more death from starvation, from suicide, from drug abuse, from domestic abuse, from crime, and from all of the forces of poverty and the inability to get health care if we don't make a drastic change immediately. We should have done it already. But every day that goes by is another business that will not open. It is another job that will not be available when that person comes back to work. And it's more lives. And now we're getting to the point where it's going to be tens and hundreds of lives lost because we in America are not reopening. So I'm not the one costing people's lives. It's these shutdown mayors like Mayor Bowser. It's these shutdown governors that care more about controlling the population than they do about facts, about science, and about the real impact of these economic shutdowns.
Suzzanne Monk with us tonight. She has a big event tomorrow at Freedom Plaza. I want to speak with you briefly about the cowards that call themselves apostles, bishops, pastors, and so on around this particular area of the country. I know it's around everywhere else as well. But somehow they've contacted the Department of Justice and they've asked the Attorney General, William Barr, to help a negotiated settlement with the cities and states so that churches can meet in full. My argument is that you're protected by the First Amendment and you can en masse go open up your churches and never have to worry about all of that. Am I crazy here or am I trying to mutilate the whole process of the assembly of worship?
No, and I've actually put out on social media that I will convert to the first church that has the guts to open up and oppose Muriel Bauer's shutdown. So, who knows? If it's a synagogue, I might have some learning. Right. I might have some education I need to do. But I am looking, as a person of faith, I am looking for my pastor, my spiritual leader, to have the fortitude to stand up for what they preach in the Bible. And the Lord says we should not live in a spirit of fear. And yet we have pastors across the country who are doing just that. And particularly here in DC, as you know, so many of our pastors have been looped into the Democratic machine. And it's one of the reasons that, they like to make fun of us here in DC for not being such a large group of reopeners. But, we're a very blue city that has been very frightened by what they can lose if they irritate Muriel. And certainly these churches with their connections to the political process fear that as well. So if any one of them can actually prove to me that they're a preacher and not a politician, I will join this church.
There you go. Suzzanne, there are those who always contemptuously respond to me on that particular thing, pointing to the book of Romans and stating that we should, 13th chapter, that we should obey the laws of the land. Unfortunately, Christians don't have an idea that CDC only can make recommendations. It's the Congress that makes law. Can you tell all of the Christians around the world exactly what is the law of the land in our country?
I got a picture of it. I got a copy of it right here. My little pocket constitution. It's actually really short, you guys. It's not long at all. And I keep checking. I check the First Amendment every day. I wake up. It says the same thing. No matter how many times I look at it, it still says that the right to assembly shall not be infringed. It still says that they cannot pass any prohibition of free exercise of religion. None of that changes. So exactly. The law of the land stands here. This is your permit to assemble. This is your permit to open up your churches. You need nothing more than this. This and maybe a little bit of bravery, of fortitude, of principle to actually stand up to it. We have churches actually across the country, Florida, many states across the country, they have done exactly that. They have gotten the fines, they've gotten the tickets, they've taken those tickets to court, and they are winning these battles. They are winning these legal battles right now. So I would encourage anyone who is thinking of standing up, thinking of opening up their business in defiance of these orders, opening up their church in defiance of these orders, understand that people across the country are winning. They are taking that first step, that sacrifice, that risk to put themselves in front of the law. But once you get that into the court system, we have a very the Constitution is well protected in our court system, and the president has done a great job in making sure that our courts are filled with a great deal of patriots who are going to favor your constitutional argument over these tyrannical shutdown orders.
The law of the land is the U.S. Constitution, and it is based on the U.S. Declaration of Independence from Britain, which was a tyrannical superpower of its time. And its government believed that it had the right to do whatever it wanted to the colonists, and that they had no representation. The way that we are pretty much constructed at this particular point is that the American people have no real representation. Literally, governors and mayors are making decisions for you and against the Constitution. I have asked of this particular situation because just want to finish off the church situation, because many of them applied for the PPP program and didn't get the money. So I want to explain to you all that your pastor's cowardice may lead to the shutdown of your church, since the big money days in church are Mother's Day and also Easter. Those days have passed. You're going to have a big financial problem. But churches are not the only institutions that will have big financial problems. The for-profit industry is watching as small business restaurants and other such businesses are falling to the wayside. Can you explain to the American people that there is no light switch for our economy? It doesn't work like that?
Well, if you want any greater example, you can merely look at what we're seeing in our food supply chain. So we have seen stories across the country where farmers are tilling crops under, where we see animals are being euthanized and buried rather than brought to market. We see egg sellers in Pennsylvania having to cull their egg producing chickens because they cannot get the food to market. Why did all that happen? Well, we turned off the restaurants. We turned off the schools. Our farmers produce the vast majority of their food goes to restaurants and schools. And we have set up vast networks of regulations, which I didn't advocate and I don't think are a good idea, because look at what's happened. We have farmers who produce eggs that predominantly sell to restaurants that do not have the ability to get those eggs to the grocery store. They can't put them through the processing plant so they can get that cute little stamp on them so the government says your eggs have been washed properly and they're okay. We're actually having free market solutions solve that problem. The story about the eggs, a young woman who runs a farm stand in his county reached out, and she was able to actually sell $36,000 worth of his eggs at her farm stand within a few day period. So we see the free market responding where our limitations in our economy are really having hindrances. But that's a great example of how hard it is just to turn the economy back on. We've put a dent in our system. All of our events, you were talking about Mother's Day and that being a big day for the churches, all of our summer events, all of our conventions, all of these activities that make a great deal of money, particularly for DC, gone. Those won't be back for a year. South by Southwest Film Festival may be closed permanently. That's a huge money maker for the Southwest. Gone. There are businesses that are not going to reopen, and whether they get these loans or not, it's funny, but a lot of workers, because we are paying extra unemployment, because we're getting these bonus checks, we have businesses that are saying, I'm reopening. We're in a reopening state. We're ready to reopen. They call their employees back and they said, I'm making more on unemployment. So these businesses are actually now struggling just to have employees to staff their business. None of it was a turn on switch. It was never going to be instantly turned back on, because business it's time sensitive. Things happen over time. Crops grow in a season. We're not robots. We're human beings, and we certainly need to remember that as we handle our economy.
You hit that right on the spot, and I know that Marylanders are quite irate over the fact that the crab season will be infringed upon. And this does something, and poor people don't understand what fear does with an economy. Especially, you mentioned the fact that you went up to Alabama Avenue. You go there, and the shelves are clear, and prices start escalating. Who's being hurt the most by the government and tyrant Muriel Bowser caring about and loving the people of D.C.? Who's being hurt the most?
Well, I can tell you it's the folks earning the bottom 50% of the income bracket. It's the folks who don't have that extra restaurant budget to afford. It's the folks who are trying to just make sure that they can put meals on the table for their family, for their children every single day. And when we start seeing costs go up, we have to make much more difficult decisions than Nancy Pelosi and what flavor of ice cream she's going to get this week. We have to make decisions on whether or not our kids go to college. We have to make decisions on whether or not we're able to get a car that's actually safe and can operate, or we keep that old beater that we're just rolling around town in just to make ends meet. We have to start making decisions on what kind of food you can actually buy, whether we can afford meat, So we're now looking at nutritional deficiencies, educational deficiencies, physical deficiencies that people in the lower half of the income brackets are going to suffer. We don't have those buffering margins to stay home. Frankly, that's why a lot of the working class are so frustrated to see that the elite class is more than happy to just stay home and, quote, save lives, while our lives are the ones being ruined and put at risk.
I want to broach this with you. I got to have you come back, and I'll work on that for next week because I need an update on what you do tomorrow and subsequently what happens. We have to keep putting pressure on Muriel Bowser and also on Congress. Unfortunately, the House of Representatives is ruled by Speaker Pelosi, but congressional leaders need to come forward and say that it's unconstitutional for the city of Washington to be shut down. But in talking about the poor people, and that's virtually all of east of the river, there are those who sit back and they support Muriel Bowser because she has a D behind her name. She's a Democrat, so she must care. But they don't seem to put all the two and twos together, especially when it comes to education. You have a large number of children in the District of Columbia that have no access to the internet, and their parents have no understanding of the internet whatsoever. And now the fully paid public school administration sends the kids home and wants them to learn at home. Your thoughts on the powers that be, Muriel Bowser's terrible oversight of the educational system right now in the District of Columbia?
Well, we had a problem with our education system before the shutdowns.
Bingo.
But certainly, we were barely getting people through school beforehand. But certainly, with the shutdowns, we put ourselves in even a graver situation. And, it's one of these things that I appreciate my rural friends. There's a lot of great homeschoolers I know, and I'm very proud of the work that they can do. And I try to explain to them city life a little bit and the difference between our lower income people who have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to get by. Many of these actually are essential workers. You're not homeschooling your kid if you're an essential worker. You're just not going to be able to do that. And so we now expect these individuals to be able to pay for daycare because these kids are at home. And that's an additional cost on top of their regular expenses. That's a 20 to 30% increase in their cost, in their monthly cost would be additional daycare because we don't have the school system teaching them. So we always say, well, the schools are a babysitter. Well, they are a way in which working class families have always been able to provide an opportunity for two family members, for both parents to work. We've continued to create a society where either we have single parent homes or we have both parents who need to go to work. And certainly in that situation, those people are going to, those children's education is going to suffer immensely. And that's a lot of the working class folks in not just our city, but Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, New York. It goes on and on. No one has thought, what's the single mother going to do when she needs to go to work and the kids need to be homeschooled? No one's thought of that.
Finally, Suzzanne, there are those who, and let's just be honest, those who wouldn't tune in tonight because we happen to be conservatives. And they are being just eviscerated economically and still won't admit that they're being eviscerated economically. And then there are those who are on our side that say that, wait a minute, we need to be more compassionate. Maybe we should put gloves on and wear a mask, and then we would be able to walk in everyone's shoes, and then maybe they will hear our opinion. I got to ask you here, is this point of view that we have deconstructive to the pattern of care for the American people, or is it a constructive way to get people back into life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
Well, it's funny because one of the things in DC that we are struggling with the most is our service industry. We're a service town. We run restaurants, we run hotels, and we are the host to the world here in Washington, DC. And I don't ask my waiter or waitress what party he or she votes for when I leave my tip at the end of the table. I don't go into a restaurant and go, well, I'm going to need to know how the owner voted in the last election in order to support his business. I'm a resident of DC. I want this history of DC. I want our restaurants. I want our jobs. I want our wonderful environment that we provide for so many millions of individuals who come here each and every year to see this beautiful place. I want that to succeed, and I really don't care who you vote for. But what I will say is this: the problem becomes when you have one party that has been in rule for so long that they no longer have any accountability. And that happens on the Republican side. To be honest, that happens on the Democrat side. So it's important to actually start to recognize that it's Muriel Bowser and her connection that she's built up across the city that is now a wall for people to get their liberties back, to get their jobs back, to get their lives back, because she's frightened so many people into losing that government favor. And that's what one party rule does. The Democrats have done that very well in urban environments, but I think they're going to be in line for a very rude wake-up call, because what we are going to see across the country, and we're already seeing it in many states, we are seeing the Democrats continue to be the no jobs, stay at home, suffer. We don't care what happens to you as long as we can pretend to protect grandma party. And we see the president and we see the red states opening up. And we see folks like Maria Pickering, who is, putting her candidacy on the line to represent the correct position, which is we should be open. We should be listening to the fact that the science is proven. We're not going to overwhelm our hospitals. That's why we were closed. We need to get these jobs back. We need to protect the economy and livelihood of every single Washingtonian. And that's whether you vote independent, whether you vote Republican, whether you vote Democrat. And frankly, I think the Democrats are going to lose a lot of votes when they see when the working class people start to see who is really fighting for their jobs in this country.
It's going to be an amazing tale for Democrats in the District of Columbia when at the end of this summer, Muriel Bowser will have to tell them that they're going to have to cut maybe a third of the monstrous $13 billion budget for the District of Columbia. Let's see how many people then consider us uncompassionate. Ladies and gentlemen, you have got to be there tomorrow. Reopen DC. There's the emblem right there. Reopen DC. Demand Mayor Bowser end the shutdown. It's at Freedom Plaza, May 14th, 12 to 2 p.m. It is right across the street from where the mayor and the city council meet every single day. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank and congratulate Suzzanne Monk for putting that all together. God bless you. Thank you, and we'll look forward to following up with you in the coming weeks.
I look forward to telling you some great things and all the successes we're having across the country. I just want your viewers to know we are going to succeed. We will get our country back. The new normal they're talking about is going to not exist, but our new normal, a country that follows the Constitution, we're going to go back to the old normal.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, Suzzanne Monk, it was a tremendous honor talking to her. When we come back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, I want to pick up there and tell you all about Wisconsin. Yeah, our Constitution wins again. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching the Exceptional Conservative Show. I am your host, Ken McClinton. I am also president of TECN TV. We are a republic, not a democracy. We are the best in urban conservative news, talk, and movies. And when we come back, also, I got to tell you about the movie list for this particular weekend, TheExceptionalConservativeShow.com. And we are also sponsored by Hawaii Coffee, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely go to our website to find out more about Hawaii Coffee. We will be right back with more of the best right after this commercial break.